Welcome to the West Midlands and Warwickshire Green Business Podcast. Subscribe now for more episodes. Good morning and welcome to the latest edition of the Green Business Podcast. And today we're talking about cutting costs, growing profits through the circular economy. I'm Jonathan Howl, Energy Advisor for the Decarbonisation Net Zero Programme, and I'll be your host for today. Now, just to set the scene, as regular listeners know, the Decarbonisation Net Zero Programme is free to access and it's designed to help your business reduce its energy use. And we also have grant funding available to support those energy efficiency projects you may have in mind. Now, if that sounds of interest, do keep listening. I'll give you a few more details later on in the session. But today, we're going to look at bringing you different stories as we do from the wider world of sustainability. And today's session will actually revisit a topic we first covered back in June 2023, the circular economy. Now, there are various descriptions of the circular economy out there, but just to put a bit of context on it, in general terms, this means replacing a typical linear model of production, that is take, make and dispose, with one of reduce, reuse and recycle. Therefore, of course, it uses less energy and produces less waste and emissions. Now, that principle can be applied to a wide range of scenarios. For example, some of you listening may use it at home to reduce your domestic waste. Here at Coventry City Council, it actually underpins a large part of our climate change strategy. But today we're going to focus more on the business side of this, more interesting for our business community maybe, and look at how the circular economy and its principles can be used in the industrial and commercial sectors. So obviously I'm not going to talk this through on my own. I do need some expert help. So I'd like to introduce today's guest of the session, James Woodcock from International Synergies. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Jonathan.
Okay, first of all, to kick off, and also, again, thanks for giving your time today to give us your expertise. Can you introduce yourself again, give us a bit about your organisation, your background, and your role within the business, please?
Yeah, so I'm James Woodcock and I'm the Senior Project Manager for International Synergies Limited. We've been in existence since 2005 and I initially was a practitioner at International Synergies, assisting companies to find homes for their underutilised resources by connecting them with other companies. Then I ended up travelling the world, bringing training and experience and support to 50 countries, where our experience in delivering the National Industrial Symbiosis Programme, or NISP, as it was known as its acronym. So through that, we learned a lot about how to do this as a facilitated model. And then I was going around the world working with delivery partners in countries to deliver that and help them set up programs on facilitated industrial symbiosis. I'm now back alongside that. I'm now back in the UK, working as part of the delivery team in the UK on our UK-based IS projects.
Okay, good stuff. Thank you very much. So you are essentially our perfect podcast guest. Lots of experience, very engaging. So I'm looking forward to today's conversation, to be honest with you. So just to start off then, International Synergies as an organisation, can you give us a bit of an overview of what you do, what services you offer, and what your sort of key business aims are, please?
Yeah, certainly. So we've been in business, as I said, since 2005, and we're focused on enabling organisations of all sectors, all sizes, to realise cost and carbon savings through a technique called industrial symbiosis. Now, that's a technical term, but essentially what it is that we view waste, it's just a resource that's in the wrong place. And if we think about those resources cleverly, we can often find another use for them within other companies instead of sending those resources through to disposals. So the typical example that we sometimes think about is, say, eggshells. Now, you might think that, eggshells will go off to composting or something like that. But the reality is that within them is collagen, which can be used in face creams. So it's thinking about resources in innovative ways, thinking about what you can do to get the best value out of those resources by connecting the companies together and through business transactions. Actually, it is about carbon saving. That's important. But you want this thing to be sustainable for businesses, and that means it's got to be profitable.
Okay, so layman's terms, if I see the term industrial symbiosis, which was a new term on me before today, is that essentially the same as a circular economy, just like a different way of describing it for the industrial sector?
We often refer to industrial symbiosis as the circular economy in action. So a lot of circular economy is we can do X, Y, and Z. Industrial symbiosis is about saying, yeah, you can do X, Y, and Z, and this is how you do it.
Okay, good stuff. And what sort of scale has your business worked at? I presume you work globally. I saw on your website there's references to working with the United Nations and so on. So I presume you're out there at quite a large international scale, giving your expertise to companies and presumably governmental organisations around the world. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. So as we said, we've worked in 50 countries. We've worked on direct projects on regional level. We've worked on projects on national level. And we've worked with local delivery partners and we've worked with national delivery partners, governments, looking at things like what's their policies, what's their regulations, how do they actually get this thing to work? Who do they need to work with? Who do the stakeholders that they need to talk to? How do you actually deliver this in a practical, sustainable manner? And who are the best types of partners that you have? Who are the industries that you need to have as anchors? Will they come in? They join? Others will follow? All that type of thing.
Well, I'm just keen to understand what the main driver is for engagement with your companies. Is it people that have a huge amount of waste that they think we can do better with? Is it they're looking to improve profitability and reduce their outgoing costs? And if so, how do they then generally tend to onboard with you as an organisation? Is it like a typical roadmap into your expertise, for example?
Yeah, so we work with companies of all shapes and sizes. You can work with micros, SMEs, large scale and multinationals, because everybody has some form of resource waste that can be used within industrial symbiosis. So, the drivers really are carbon and cost savings or increased profits. So I mentioned NISP before. When we operated in the UK, that project delivered 42 million tons of carbon savings to businesses.
Wow. Okay.
And the cost of that was £1 per ton, less than £1 per ton. So it's a really high impact, low cost delivery model. And as part of that, businesses themselves that were involved received £2 billion worth of economic impact through cost savings and increased profits. So it's low cost, very high impact, very high return. So how businesses then engage with the projects that we do is the easy way is they contact us. We've currently got 2 projects running in the West Midlands. We've got one called the Circular Economy for Birmingham and Solihull called CEBS. And we've got the West Midlands Resource Reuse Network. Both of those have dedicated email addresses. You can contact us via those email addresses, and I'll give you them later on. And then we will actually come along and visit your site and engage with you with regards to carrying out a site survey, looking at your resource halves, what you've got that is underutilized, or what is it that you would class as a byproduct or waste. And then we will take that back, put it on a resource matching software called Synergy, and then we'll use that to cleverly look for potential opportunities that we can give to you, that you can then progress with companies and say, okay, hopefully we get a match between you where the resource goes to beneficial use with the other companies. So CEBS is focused on SMEs within Birmingham and Solihull, and that delivers on-site assessment for your waste streams, byproducts, and identification of opportunities for matching those resources to other companies for solutions that can be enacted. The West Mids Resource Reuse Network, however, is slightly different, and that is actually available to all companies of all sizes within the West Midlands region. So it's a wider region and it's a wider remit of companies, and that's regardless of size. But the difference is as well is that is particularly focused on resources to deal with metals, sands, and sludges. So if you're a company that's got any of those types of resources, then the Resource Reuse Network is probably the better way to go. And again, the support offered through the Resource Reuse Network is through longer term. It's a longer term program. The support offered through this is also longer term, but it again centers on those different waste streams and byproducts. But we can also look at the potential investment opportunities for longer term projects. So whereas CEBS might be trying to figure things out in quite a small time scale, the Resource Reuse Network can look at things that might take 1 or 2 years and say, okay, well, let's try and identify some funding that might benefit you in the longer term.
Yeah, excellent. Good answer. So just for our audience, this is the bit that really piqued my interest when I actually went to a session recently where James was speaking, because obviously our program, Decarbonisation Net Zero, is a free to use program. We're about guidance, and I thought there was some synergies between what James is offering and what we offer, basically. So just to clarify then for our audience, those two programs you've referenced, I presume they're, as you've said, they're free to access. It's free guidance, basically. Is there any sort of funding on the back of that at all within the programs to get people to get the projects underway out of interest, maybe?
So our projects are free to access at the point of delivery. So we come along and we can give you advice and we can help you realise the matches for free. That's what those projects are there about.
Okay, excellent.
With regards to actual funding of implementing your projects, we work with other projects that are funded to deliver that aspect. So we don't deliver funding ourselves, but there are other partners that we connect with where we can say, okay, if you need funding, it's just part of the whole synergy process, connecting people together and bringing people together and saying, you need funding, here's people that might be able to deliver the funding that you need.
To coin a phrase, collaboration is key, basically.
Absolutely.
So engage, and we'll cross refer you and point you in the right direction, basically. So looking at those two programs, then, do you have any case study examples for either of those two programs that you could perhaps just talk our audience through, if that's possible? I'm thinking about what cost savings you typically see. You did give a good case study in the talk that I sat in on, so maybe that's one you might want to reference in terms of cost savings, because that's what our business audience like to hear, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of our examples is with a company called Pym and Wildsmith, who are metal finishers, and they're an SME based in the West Midlands, and they've got a metal-rich sandblast waste, powder coating materials from their surface treatment processes. Now, they were disposing to landfill, £16 a load, which equated to £32,000 is their annual cost, sending this waste to landfill. Now, we connected them to metal foundries in the Black Country, and they were using that resource as a foundry process capping material. So that inhibits metal splatter during the process that they do.
Yeah.
And what then happened is that then found, so that's the use one. Use two then, because this cascaded, that formed part of the foundry slag material that then went off to a local aggregate producer. So it didn't just get disposed of, it actually ended up having two hits, one with the metal foundries and then one with the aggregate production. And that then turned that around into a £5,000 a year revenue stream. So it went from a £32,000 loss into a £5,000 profit. So the net is £37,000. And that ultimately diverted 80 tonnes of landfill reduction and 95 tonnes of CO2 reduction for that company as well. So they had landfill diversion, they had carbon reduction, and there was a vast turnaround in the economics of it all.
So there's so many benefits here just by engaging to the program and getting some expert advice. And obviously, this is a bit of a loaded question, but could you also say that the unmeasurables are benefits as well in terms of, I always talk about this with energy reduction. It's all about the cost, obviously, in terms of reducing your energy cost. But is it about improving business perception, making the business look like a greener business? Do businesses that you engage with like that angle as well, from a more sort of holistic point of view, just out of interest?
Absolutely. I mean, it looks good on the sustainability report, because you're not saying, we're offsetting our carbon by doing trading schemes or something like that. You're actually doing something tangible with a physical resource, and you can say, we're actually pointing here that's saying this was going to X and it's now being reused. It's beneficial use.
Fantastic, good answer, thank you. So just moving on then to the last couple of questions. This is what I was going to ask a bit earlier on, but I think it's key to drop in here. What you're doing, are there any sort of legal requirements and legal frameworks around this sort of process at all? Is it written into any laws, maybe at UK or EU level, or is it just a case of you're doing your best and that's what businesses want out of interest?
Yeah, so we operate under the Waste Framework Directive, which is the European level. Now, that's gone through a couple of edits, and in 2018, industrial symbiosis was actually written into the Waste Framework Directive. So what they're looking at implementing is, if you have a waste, you need to actually consider industrial symbiosis options before you dispose of something. So there is that driver there. That's a really good driver, and that will be beefed up and become more important as we progress through time. There are what we call quality protocols in the UK, which is where for certain resources, certain wastes, you can pick up a quality protocol and look at it, and it will tell you what, if you actually, if you process this material in a certain manner, it's no longer classified as a waste, which means people who actually use it are using it as a resource, and it's not classified as waste.
Got it. Understood. Okay, good answer. Thank you. So just moving on then to pretty much my last question for today. I always ask this on these kind of sessions. So looking at your vast experience across all the countries you've worked in, what's next? Is this going to, obviously this is going to grow and grow from a legislative point of view, from a commercial point of view. What else is around the corner to help us improve sustainability on a global scale in terms of this industrial symbiosis and circular economy scenario?
So there's a lot going on. You can look at things like where people are saying they're looking at the aspect of what training will be needed in companies to understand this on the shop floor. Things like, segregation of waste is important, because if you bring waste together, it's contaminated and somebody can't use it. But if you segregate it, that's really good. We know that the most successful method of delivery is to have facilitators supported by resource matching software such as Synergy. And Synergy, through these projects, has become a system now that companies can directly log into, so they can control the input of their resources and the searching for potential matches, in addition to using facilitators to help them realize those things. We know there's going to be a need to connect industrial symbiosis with waste management. So, and we're going to see a step change, I think, in the implementation within companies at that time. And also the more support for companies through that as well. And the more support companies can get with this, the better. Because at the end of the day, companies want to make their widgets, they want to do their business. And this is important, but we don't want them to think it's a distraction. So having facilitators who can come in, look at your resources, identify options, and then help you actually then realize those resources by working between yourselves and the companies that you're matched with, that's really good.
Okay, good stuff. So effectively more collaboration, more legislation, and that's going to drive this moving forward. So fantastic, really good answer. So James, thanks ever so much for your time today. That was a really interesting conversation. So basically, if anyone listening wants more detail on James's programs, International Synergies, and the programs that he runs, you may, for example, be running a business and have a lot of waste that you don't know what to do with. Do get in touch with James via the links that are in the podcast description. Do engage and see where he can help. And essentially, bigger picture, there's a wealth of guidance out there for SMEs in particular. Much of it is free. So do reach out and get support where you can. Just to context that with what we do, the Decarbonisation Net Zero Programme will provide a free energy audit for your business, and we're there to guide you and identify areas of inefficiencies, basically. So on the back of that, we can then also offer a 50% grant to help get those improvement projects underway. In the past, we've helped fund things like heat pumps, insulation, solar PV, double glazing, and much more. So again, details on how to engage with my programme, the Decarbonisation Net Zero Programme, are also in the podcast description. I'm Jonathan Howl. Thanks for listening.